But it's not like we're gonna make someone leave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Get out! You're not welcome here.
No, in order to enter the room, you have to answer
show your
judge questions.
Show your
I
social
approve.
media.
I want this to be a thing.
I could do a secret handshake.
Wear
You
them on
learn after you
lanyards.
pass your.
Wayne's World style. Backstage pass.
Learn, no, I like secret handshakes. That's what I like.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Learn a secret handshake once you pass your exam. I've always wanted to be part of a
Secret society.
Yeah. I went to a meeting for the, what do they call them? Freemasons?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, those guys. My uncle used to be a Freemason. And
Yeah.
Those guys are interesting.
These guys were super casual. Was it like a coffee shop? And they just didn't like.
A cafe shop?
Yeah, I said that wrong. Sorry.
It's all good.
Just kinda-
You're
like,
from Utah, aren't
I
you?
Well,
am from Utah. But I grew up with a guy from.
folks, we
from
are live
upstate New York. Hey,
on
welcome to Judge
YouTube,
Classes.
And I believe we're going live on Twitch momentarily.
Sweet.
We're not already.
Welcome, one and all.
And I am fixing Facebook, so we should.
Sweet. I will wait for Facebook to be
Get
fixed.
there, yeah. Okay. We're live on
Would you
Facebook,
rest?
YouTube, and Twitch. Okay, we are gravy.
Awesome.
Let's get going.
Welcome to Judge Classes. My name's Tony, level 1 judge here in Utah. First of all, I want to, as usual, thank Paragon City Games for being so awesome. They host us every week. They continue to be awesome. Come check out their store on their website. I almost said FedEx, where I work. That's hilarious. ParagonCityGames.com. Before we get started, anybody remember what we talked about last week? It was only a week ago, unlike the week before that. Anyway, do you remember?
I was late and not paying attention.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Timing
Fair
in
enough. I'll give you-
priority, wasn't it?
That's right.
the passing
priority
stick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that right? We also did state-based actions, right?
Yep. State-based actions.
Already?
Oh.
Keep going.
So it's just
Yeah,
us.
It's just us. Just one student? We only
Yeah,
have
the
Patrick?
student who's running the chat. Hello.
Keep his door open just a little bit.
Yeah.
Sweet. So, state-based actions last week.
Yes.
Any questions from those that you came across in between now and last week?
I will need to rewatch it. I have to rewatch all of these because
Totally fair.
Because I'm running
Totally
this
fair.
too.
Jeremiah, I'm going to call on you really quick while
Okay.
you're on your phone.
Yep.
One reminder question. Can you quiz our student really quick and the chat? Just one really quick question.
When are state-based actions checked?
Whenever priority is passed.
Yep.
Aye!
How many times does it pass? How many times is it checked?
How many times is it checked?
Yeah.
This feels like a trick question.
It is.
It's not a trick question.
It's a little bit of a trick question.
It is absolutely a trick question.
I was like, oh no.
When does it stop checking? That's a better way to ask it.
When someone makes an action.
No.
No.
I asked this because you got it because you were. I felt like you were confused when we watched it. So remember when you passed the.
The Scion of the Wilds. One with a -1/-1 counter on it, one without one, and one
Yes.
with a +1/+1.
Remember Jeremiah's sweet moves? He
Yes.
checks the state-based actions, and if anything happens, he keeps it. And then he checks it again, and if there's no state-based action, he then passes it to the passes priority.
Okay.
So it's when they do a full check of state-based actions and nothing
so
happens.
A full trunk rotation.
Yes, exactly.
All
And
right,
if there's
all right.
nothing that happens, then it can pass it on.
Sure. Okay.
Sweet. All right, so this week we're talking about handling triggered abilities, as you guys can see on screen. Triggered abilities are tricky. I like them. They're really fun, especially when you get into other types of judging. They can get really confusing, but we're going to keep it pretty basic and explain kind of what they are today. So can we get the next slide? So I can't read this. This is not
What is
good.
a triggered ability?
Yeah, what is a triggered ability? Or,
They are a bit like activated abilities
thank you.
or static abilities, but they trigger or go on the stack when something happens.
Yes, that is exactly right. So, triggered ability is something that happens when an action takes place. Yeah, just like you read. Thank you. So, how do you guys know what a triggered ability? That it is a triggered ability? Go to the next slide. We have 3 really good indicators of triggered abilities, which we can't read because of this stuff.
Oh, we can read them. You're
You
the
can?
only one that lost.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think it's because of the way that
It's like this.
Yeah, like your angle is bad, but we can read it.
That's awesome.
So,
Even better.
It says when, whenever, and at.
Yeah. So whenever you see that on the text of a card, all of the time, right, it will be a triggered ability.
Yep.
So I'll give you an example of that on the next slide. We have a new card from our div station.
Swarm intelligence.
What's it called?
Swarm intelligence.
Swarm intelligence. This is an enchantment for how much mana?
6 and a blue.
6 and a blue.
Expensive.
It's an expensive one. This is like one of those cards you put in a
Commander.
deck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may copy that spell and you may choose new targets. So how do we know this is a trigger?
It says whenever,
Whenever. So whenever you cast a spell, you get a copy of it.
because whenever is an extension of when.
Instant or source. Well, it said that actually. It said when, whenever, at.
Oh, when, whenever, at.
They're actually
okay.
2 different types. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool.
So it's pretty clear. All right, next one.
The Hikma Sentinels.
What does that say on top? Can you read it
What
for me?
happens when?
What happens when? All right. So we're going over an example of these cards. So whenever you
Cycle or discard a card. Heckham Sentinels gets +1/+1 until end of turn.
You guys are the best because I can't read that.
We're here for you.
And then the next one, it's got another example. We have Collective Brutality. You guys familiar with that card? Has the escalate cost, which you can do more than one of the modes on it, and by discarding the card. So what happens when I cast this spell and I had that creature out, and I choose to escalate it at least once? I discarded a card. So what happens?
Before that spell resolves, the Hikma Sentinel's trigger will go on the stack, where it gets +1/+1.
Okay. So we gotta finish casting this spell, right? Because escalating is part of casting the spell, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And
So
of course you remember the steps of casting the spell.
Yep. We talked about that a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
And so we'd finish casting it and putting it on the stack, and then the trigger would happen. So we gotta finish doing everything we can to
Yeah,
cast
so yeah, you
this
choose
and
all
put
your
this on
votes. You
the-
only, so it won't.
So will this go on the stack first, or will the other trigger go on the stack?
It will go on the stack first, but it will resolve last.
Good job. All right. That's the only reason I brought that up, is just because we wanted to make sure that things can happen in between,
And
kind of happen while you're casting.
well,
a spell.
2 triggers go on the stack if you choose to escalate for all 3 modes.
True.
Are they so? They're separate instances of discard. I guess it just checks how many
Yeah.
go into
Each
the
one.
graveyard.
Mhm.
Okay.
Absolutely, 2 different triggers.
Yeah, 'cause sometimes it says like 1 or more. Or
Yeah, I didn't read the other card. It really was just like general discard.
Okay.
Whenever something's discarded or yeah, but yeah. All right, next one. Hey, we have another student.
Yay!
Welcome. And Twitch chat. You guys are awesome too.
Oh yeah.
And Facebook chat and YouTube chat. You guys are great if you're all there.
We
All right,
should
so
probably at some point go onto the YouTube videos and see if people have commented.
I have actually.
Oh,
couple times.
perfect.
Nothing.
Ooh.
Not like regularly, but I have.
Sure.
So can you read this? Nope. Can you-
Multiple triggers,
Hey, can you come sit here? Maybe that helps.
maybe.
Yep. That's the angle.
It's
Right.
totally crazy. So
Multiple triggers can happen at the same time. Which order do they happen?
we have a board wipe, Hour of Revelation. So what happens? Which order do they happen if something happens? Like we have a board wipe, we have a bunch of creatures that have a bunch of effects when they leave the battlefield. How does that work? Like, what order do the triggers go into the stack? Because they're all leaving at the same time, right? They're all dying at the same time because we don't make stuff die. Even though we pick them up individually, they all leave the battlefield at the same time. Look like you have the answer.
I think so. So is it active player non-active player?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the active player will put their triggers on the stack first.
So what if I have? You're right with that. I understand. Where you were going is exactly right. So it goes active player, not active player order. So the active player puts it on, like you were saying, non-active player. What if I have like 12 things as active player, and you're a non-active player? I have like 12 creatures, and like 6 of them have active triggered abilities when they die. What happens then? How do they go on the stack?
Don't you determine the order?
Yes.
You can
Use
determine
the.
So who determines it?
You as the active player.
Okay, so I determine his if
No,
he
you
has more than
determine
one.
yours.
Mine? Okay. How do I determine that? Whether or not I determine or he
You need to
determines it?
announce where them
Because of
and order them on the stack.
Correct.
You as the active player
You're
need to
right,
announce
you're right.
all of the triggers.
But I have
Uh,
ownership of them.
You
so
as
I'm-
the active player, do
You-
I get to do the non-active player triggers?
This is
No.
judge technicality, is
No,
what
it
he's
is-
getting at.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
it's
sorry.
you as the
Yeah.
controller of the
Yeah.
trigger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So it is important about understanding who controls the trigger, because sometimes like you'll enchant someone else's ability, like their creature, and you still own that that enchantment or aura, but it has an effect. It's really weird. And
Sure.
sometimes you
That matters for detrimental triggers as well, correct?
well, we don't have to worry about that. That's more like talking about policy, but
Okay.
in this circumstance, like where it goes on the stack, we do need to worry about because we need to determine who controls it. And sometimes auras will give creatures triggers. Like this creature
Gets this ability.
Gets this ability. So you kind of need to think about that. Anyway, it's kind of a complicated thing. Apologize to go into it.
So because
But-
you are the controller of the aura that's giving the creature the ability,
Uh huh.
you control that trigger, even if it's not your creature.
No.
It depends on whether the trigger.
it's written.
It
How it's
depends on
written.
how it's
Okay.
written.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Depends on how it's written. So we'll go over an example later on in the lesson about that. Let's go to the next slide if you don't mind. Is that all this is? Did we go over
Or
that?
if
I can't
they're
read
all
it.
owned by the same person, they get to choose.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. Sweet. So,
Putting a trigger
someone
on the
read
stack.
this? Yeah, go ahead.
So whenever we put a trigger onto the stack, we follow the same steps we would if we were casting a spell. Modes, targets, costs, etc. Just like spells, if they are not legal targets, nothing happens.
So, does that make sense? So just like you're casting a spell, you have to go through the steps like you're casting a spell. A lot of the steps don't happen because they're just not options. Like modes, like very rarely do you have a mode in a trigger. When you guys think of one, I can't even think of one.
Retreat to Kanzandu.
This is why I love Jeremiah.
Yeah,
Nicely done.
yeah, the retreats, they have different
Yeah,
modes.
Yeah.
on
Awesome.
land enters.
But so my example for this specifically is Snapcaster Mage. So you have something like Rest in Peace. Does it say that on the bottom one? What does it say right
If
here?
there are no legal targets, nothing happens.
Perfect. So go to the next slide. I think I have Rest in Peace on the next slide. I do. Look, I remember my own slides. Sweet. So like I have Rest in Peace and I cast Snapcaster Mage. Obviously all of the graveyards are gone. They're all exiled. So Snapcaster has no targets. And if you go back to Snapcaster Mage, it's different than a lot of other triggered abilities. This one actually just says you have to choose a target. It doesn't say may, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Like for instance, you guys know who Restoration Angel is? Are you guys familiar with that? Most people are. When it enters, you may choose a creature to flicker and bring it back. So that one, when it enters, I don't think I put this in the slides. I'm sorry, I forgot it. When we talk about May triggers, you still have to choose a target with Restoration Angel because we're talking about targets here. That's why I'm talking about it. But when it goes to resolve, you can choose to resolve it or not. With this one, since there is no target, it just nothing happens because there's nothing to choose. So anyway.
Do you mind if I throw in an example?
Please, of course.
Lorthos, the Tidebinder, I believe, or the Tidemaker.
Does.
He's a legendary octopus who says, whenever Lorthos the Tidemaker attacks, you may pay 8. If you do, tap up to 8 target permanents. Those permanents do not untap during their controller's next untap steps. So the fun thing with this one is you still have to choose the targets even if you don't pay the 8. So if they have 8 phantasmal images, you can target each of them, say, okay, I've targeted them, I'm not paying the 8 because that's the last thing you do, and the images all die because they've been targeted.
So good. So good. Such a value. I like it. Next one.
All right.
One more.
One more.
All right.
Thanks, D.
Jeremiah, will you read that for me?
Interesting examples. Attacking Geist of Saint Traft with
Or just attacking, it's supposed to say
Attacking with Geist of Saint Traft.
attacking with Geist of Saint Traft.
Because you don't attack creatures. My bad. I left the word out. With, next one. Noble Hierarch is also on the battlefield.
A noble hierarch on the battlefield also.
So what happens?
What?
Ooh,
I'm going to have him.
you get 2 triggers.
2 triggers? 2 triggers of what?
Sorry, I just can't make sure that.
You're good.
You get the Exalted from Noble Hierarch,
Correct.
and you get the Pain. It's an angel from the guys,
4
right?
angel. Yep.
Yep.
Sweet. So let's go back to Geist of Saint Traft really quick. So Geist of Saint Traft just says, will you read that for me, Kai? I can't read it.
Whenever Geist of Saint Traft attacks, put a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. Exile that token at end of combat.
Cool. And then we have Noble Hierarch, which has Exalted. Can you read that for me, Jeremiah?
Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn.
So that's interesting. Whenever you attack with the last one, go back to Geist. You declare it as attacker, and an angel comes in, and it's a 4/4 angel. But do I get the Exalted trigger? Okay. We're getting thumbs up. Seems right. You guys probably have all seen this example before, so that's probably why. But why do you get the Exalted trigger? Does anybody know why? Please.
So, I think it's something to do with you only declared one attacker, and so Noble Hierarch sees that you declared only one attacker.
Okay.
And then so that Exalted trigger will go on the stack. Does the Exalted trigger go on the stack if you don't attack with just one creature? Say you have 2 creatures that you declare as attackers. Does
it
put
it
itself
has
on-
to have the condition met, right? For
Yeah.
The event, for the
Right,
event
yeah,
to
so
happen. So yeah, one could
you
do
have
that.
the one condition met,
Mhm.
and then you stack the angel trigger on the stack before the Exalted trigger. So the Exalted trigger will resolve first. Your guys will get +1/+1, and then guys trigger of put in a 4/4 angel, tap and attacking should resolve after
Okay.
that.
So was the angel token declared as an attacker?
No, it was not declared as an attacker.
That's key. So the key is there is 2 creatures attacking, but only one of them was declared as attacking. That's why it triggers the Exalted. Yes, go ahead.
So what if I stack it so the Exalted trigger goes first
First.
and then the angel? So I've got 2 creatures who are attacking.
Yeah. And the Exalted trigger resolves underneath it. Because you can
So
choose which
resolve?
order, remember? Because we talked about that when we were talking about the damnation example. I guess it wasn't damnation, but same thing. We could choose which order we can put them in.
Mhm.
So theoretically, it doesn't matter which way, right?
Oh, I mean,
because you only declared one attack.
Yeah, we only declare
so
one attack.
because that condition was met, you get Exalted.
Yeah,
These creatures
okay.
+1/+1.
Yeah, if there was more than one creature attacking when you declared attackers,
It wouldn't go on
it
the
wouldn't
stack.
go on the stack. They
Okay.
wouldn't have it one trigger, right? Okay. Interesting. I thought it was interesting how that works.
Yeah, they're like if you had done that the opposite way, I was wondering if like you would not
If you
get your
reorder.
Exalted trigger because
You still would.
you let your 4/4 come in first.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Because the key is that there was only one creature that was declared as an attacker,
Mhm.
and the other one came in tapped and attacking already. So it was never declared as an attacker. All right. So next one. All right. So this is the example I hinted at earlier with the damnation. We have, is that Falconraft's aristocrat?
Noble.
Noble.
Noble. Sorry. It's basically Blood Artist. I used a standard version of Blood Artist, which is just flying and it says, can you read that?
Whenever Falconwrath Noble or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life.
Okay. And then we also have 3 2/2 zombies on the battlefield also. Just vanilla bear zombies. They're actually bear zombies. That's the text on them. Alright. And then, can I get the next slide?
Yes.
Thank you. So then the non-active player casts Hour of Devastation. And no, it's active player because it's a sorcery.
That's impressive. Non-active player.
He used Quicken. Yeah, thank you.
Investigate cheating.
Or what's the
Falcon Orrery?
there you go.
Ley
That
line
would
of,
work.
ley,
That would
ley,
work.
not sanctity.
Ley line of imagination. Is that what it is?
No.
Ingenuity.
Ingenuity. Yeah.
Flash.
So does the trigger from? So obviously all non-land permanents are destroyed.
Yes.
From that, everything dies at the same time. Will the first trigger happen with our aristocrat, our noble? Sorry, Falconrath aristocrat, because they're all dying.
Yes.
Why?
Because he sees everything die. He sees himself die. So he will put all those triggers on the stack. Question mark?
Sounds right to me. Any correction?
No, that's good.
Sounds perfect.
What if I order it so he dies first?
Yeah.
They die at the same time.
Oh, you're good.
They die at the same time.
You got me.
There is no ordering that.
All right. So we get how many triggers?
How many?
4. Lose 4 life, gain 4.
Oh.
4 separate. It's
3 zombies and the Falconwrath.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Let's go on. I think you guys got that example down. All right.
No.
What does that say? Can't read it?
Another type of triggered ability.
Okay. Can you read this also for me, Pat?
Delayed triggers. They are set up to happen later on in the game, such as pacts.
Yeah. So they're really straightforward, I think. I think a lot of people side them. They basically say, when I'm casting this or something is happening right now and then something else will happen later on. So, or something causes it to happen right now and then something else comes on. So like Pact of Slaughter Pact and Pact of Negation and all the other ones.
And rebound.
You destroy creature, non-black creature, and then at the beginning of the next upkeep you have a trigger. Pretty significant trigger. If you don't remember it, you don't pay for it, you lose the game.
Or you draw your card before paying for it,
Then you die.
and you just die.
Then the game is over. Unless you're in regular Royale, and then
Unless you have a
Over, judge,
Gideon
and bat your
with
eyelash.
with a Trials emblem,
yeah.
and you're like, I don't pay for packs.
There you go. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So what was I gonna do with this one? I think I had another example of a pact. Not this one.
Not that one?
Nope. I was thinking of the prize amalgam. Is that a delayed trigger?
That is a delayed trigger.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
How is that one a delayed trigger?
It says at the beginning of the next end step, I play with amalgams all the time.
Yeah, I figured you did. That's why I asked.
You return.
What trigger is it?
Hmm?
What triggers it?
Whenever a creature enters the battlefield from your graveyard.
Perfect. So there's a trigger when something enters the battlefield from your graveyard.
Yes.
And is there another trigger when at the next end step? Beginning of the next end
Yes.
step?
So it triggers when it sees it. It's like, hey, I'm gonna come at the next end step, and then the actual return it is a separate trigger at the next end step. So, for example, with a Haunted Dead, you want to discard cards and return it at the end of their second main phase, so it comes back on their end step.
Cool. I think you understand that. All right. Next part. There's 2 parts to 1 trigger. That's why I think about them. That's how I think about them. Join us. Join us.
Welcome.
Not right now, thank you though.
Come.
I was
come.
just checking to see if the room was being used.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anywho. All right. Another type of ability. Is that what that says?
Yes, another type
Sweet.
of triggered ability.
Kai, your turn.
Delayed triggers. They are set up to happen later on in the game, such as the packs. Are
Did I read this wrong? Did I type this wrong? Probably.
no, you didn't. It's just the angle's a little harder for me on this one.
Another rule.
with delayed triggers: the effect will still happen even if the object is changed, as long as it is the same object.
You're good.
Soul Sculptor.
That's a reminder for myself. Don't look at that. No cheating. Hey, look, I can do that, and then I can read it. So we have a creature, and I use Berserk on it. Right? Are you guys familiar with Berserk? Gives it +X, +O.
One of the top 10 1-mana removal spells.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. So it gets pumped, and then during its next
End of combat.
end
It's
step.
the end step.
Oh,
End
it's the
step.
end step. Oh,
End step, it destroys it, right?
Yes.
So, say I have a Soul Sculptor.
What is
Which
it?
Soul Sculptor is a 2-mana enchantment that you can pay 2 and tap it, and you can turn a creature into an enchantment until end of turn. So what if I change my creature into an enchantment, and this says destroy that creature? Does it, without thinking about what I said up before that, does it destroy it?
Well, if it's not a creature anymore,
Can you destroy it if it says if it's not a creature anymore?
it will be put on the stack to say, hey, you're not a creature anymore. Okay.
It doesn't work. Okay. What do you think?
Is it a creature enchantment or is it just an enchantment? I don't know how.
Yeah,
the-
it
It
depends.
just turns it into just a plain.
Target
clear.
creature becomes an enchantment and loses all abilities
Okay.
until
That's a key part.
a player casts a
Loses
creature
all
spell.
abilities.
Until a player casts it.
So it's just a plain
So, yeah.
just enchantment.
I think it would. I don't think the berserk would
Would destroy it.
sacrifice it.
It doesn't. It actually destroys it, not sacrifices.
Yeah.
Oh,
So if you have a creature with
Yeah.
indestructible, it totally works.
Huh. Interesting. Jeremiah, what do you think?
Well, we have that little note there that says the effect will still happen even if the object is changed, as long as it is the same object.
Object.
yeah.
I was in a hurry. I'm sorry.
So when it says same object, does it mean like the actual card, or does that mean like the details about the card?
So what I was getting at with that is there's a when you refer to objects in Magic, it means it's like it didn't change zones typically.
Okay.
Okay.
So it becomes a new object when you like flicker something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So that's what
So
we mean by
yes,
that. So in this circumstance, it just changed what it looked like on the card, and like made it something different, but it didn't change zones.
Gotcha.
It didn't become a new
Object.
new object or permanent. I guess is another way to say it.
Okay.
Another new permanent.
Got
Where
the
when you do
subliminal
like exile
messaging
and bring
there.
it back, it becomes a new permanent. I think we
So-
talked about that in statuses, right?
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
yeah.
And now this
statuses.
specifically refers to with delayed triggers.
Yes.
That's-
So there's a delayed trigger with Berserk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
got it.
Yeah. So because it says
Beginning
where's the
next
whenever? When's the whenever at?
At the
At the
beginning.
beginning.
Perfect. There you go. There's the trigger.
So
Alright.
wait.
So it would be destroyed.
It's still a triggered ability even if the at is at the middle of the text block.
Well, didn't we go over this, Jeremiah?
We went over that a triggered ability has whenever at.
So yeah.
So if it doesn't begin with whenever at, if the at whenever is in the middle, is it still a triggered ability?
well,
It's a separate sentence, so I would say
So
yes.
if it begins a sentence is typically how they're structured, but yeah, sometimes they can be in the middle, as long as it's in that same form where it says, "This will happen, and when this effect happens, something else happens." So that's what you kind of look for, isn't that formula?
If then.
That, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know that. Familiar with that. So that's how you know it's a trigger, which I probably should have gone into more detail in the beginning. Anyway, next slide.
There we go. Haha. Haha.
I knew you'd like this. I put it in there just for
I
you.
love
Just for
objects.
me?
Yep.
Oh,
You mentioned it
know,
last
you know I
week.
started picking up the frog and it piqued my legacy lands.
Your turn to read.
Some triggered abilities trigger when a game state is true, rather than triggering when an event occurs, such as dark depths.
So these are state triggers. So Dark Depths, when it gets rid of all of its counters, or is it add counters? I can't remember. Get rid of, right?
Yeah,
it's-
remove.
Get rid of.
Starts with
Remove.
10.
Starts with 10. When it gets 0 on there, it turns into this big, huge creature. It like sacrifices itself, and you put in a token.
2020 Marit Large.
Or at least very awesome. Vermelage, whatever you say it.
Yeah.
So what if I stifle that ability? Because I could stifle that. You guys remember stifle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stifle's great, huh? My favorite
Go
thing
over
to do.
here.
I have to think about that.
Stifle is 1 blue counter target activated or triggered ability. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So this one, it gets removed. The trigger is going to go on the stack because of why?
Because it has no ice counters on it.
Because it says what? How do we know it's a trigger?
It's an
When?
if then.
Yay! That too. If then or when. So I'm gonna stifle that ability when that goes onto the stack. What happens? Any guesses? Patrick, you know this card.
So when it has no ice counters on it, it is sacrificed. So you lose the land.
Sure.
So if you stifle the trigger, you're out your Dark Depths, and you have to loan it back. I'm not sure what you're looking for.
You're good. You got it. You got it right. So the trigger doesn't resolve. The creating of the creature doesn't resolve because it gets
you wouldn't
stifled.
get the trigger.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get the creature.
Yep. Okay. And then when this comes back onto the battlefield, it would trigger again if it
It'll
has no
enter
ice
with-
counters.
Yeah, the 10
So let
ice
me read
counters.
this part about it going to the graveyard. I can't read that.
Yeah,
part.
so it says when Dark
Yeah,
Depths has
sacrifice
no
it.
ice counters on it, sacrifice it.
Sorry, camera.
If you
Oh,
do
so you do
legendary-
sacrifice it.
Yes.
So it doesn't. So there's 2 parts. Is there 2 parts? Yeah, there is 2 parts.
Yeah.
So
they could actually they could stifle it here and keep it on the
Okay.
battlefield
Oh.
before you sacrifice it. Correct.
Yeah.
and you
So
just
say
do
that's
that
when they
with
choose
the-
to stifle it.
Because you're
Stifle
countering
ability.
the whole trigger,
trigger.
including the sacrifice it
Yeah.
part.
So
Okay.
it would stay on the battlefield. That's what caught me up when he threw me. I was like, why is that? Why are you saying that?
So
Yeah, 'cause I
sacrificing
don't remember
is
that part.
part of the trigger, not like a cost.
So it's just like what you talked about earlier, just like casting a spell, the steps of it. So.
Gotcha.
So, what you're thinking of is a lot of spells and activated abilities are written as cost : effect, and when it has the part of the cost is sacrificing it, and you stifle it,
Mhm.
the thing is still sacrificed. But because this triggers and sacrificing it isn't part of the cost, it's part of the resolution,
Gotcha.
it sticks around.
Very punctuation. Thanks.
Yeah.
You're very clear. That's awesome. Appreciate that.
That's good. Yeah.
So yeah. So you stifle that, then this would stay on the battlefield, right?
As just
and
a
no,
land
and then yeah, no,
that
it'd be,
doesn't tap for mana.
it still would be 2020 Dark Depths, right? It doesn't have
Yeah.
2020. It's just a Dark Depths.
It's a Dark Depths legendary.
Does it have
spell.
any ice counters?
It has no ice counters on it.
Okay, then what would happen? State-based actions would check, right?
Uh-huh.
And then we would,
Oh,
the
does it
trigger
repeat
would
the
happen.
process?
Then then the trigger would happen again,
So you would.
and your waste of stifle.
Oh, okay.
Well,
So
I
that's
didn't
what's
know
good.
that one. That's cute. So you let them.
yeah.
Jeremiah, you're good.
Go on. If you don't talk about it, I'll bring it up in a second.
No, bring it up right now.
So if you stifle it, what's to happen? What's stopping it from triggering again?
Mhm.
Or in response to it, what's stopping it from triggering again and just getting a quadrillion Dark Depths triggers?
Oh, I got you.
Because it's still true. Like, there are
It's
no
still
ice
ice counters
counters
on
on
it.
it.
Mhm.
Trigger. There are still no ice
Ice
counters
counters.
on it. Trigger.
Because
Yep.
state-based
Yep.
action would be checking that whole time.
All right, so next one. I think we beat that one to a dead horse. Did anybody have any questions before we move on? Or was-
No. That's like, so part of the state triggers
Mhm.
are they will only be on the stack one at a
One at a time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they won't just continually go off by themselves or in response to something continually go off.
Correct.
So they will only trigger once.
Next one. Does it say? Please tell me this is mana.
Yep.
Alright,
Trigger
thank you.
mana.
It says Mona from this angle.
Moana.
Alright, so we kind of hinted at that with what you were talking about in this one, which I was going to explain in this one.
Oh, perfect.
But you're good. So, Jeremiah, read that. You're the best. By the way.
Are abilities that trigger and produce mana and do not target, they do... Oh, triggered mana abilities are abilities that trigger and produce mana and do not target. They use the stack.
Do not.
They do not use
Oh, they do not.
So
that
these
was
are-
even in the
so-
easier,
so-
yeah.
Triggered mana abilities are abilities that produce mana and they do not use the stack because they don't target it. And then we have this part. I can't read it from memory.
Unless a triggered mana ability is triggered, mana.
I didn't read it. I didn't do
And the
it.
trigger
So it's just
is
saying
put
if
onto
it's
the
if it
stack.
targets, it will use the stack. If it's a mana ability that's targeted, it will use the stack. Or like say you have a mana ability that triggers another mana ability, which I can't think of an example of right now. That's why I don't have a card over there. Say
There's a spectral searchlight that gives target player 1 mana of any color.
sure. So that and then something else that causes that. Say that mana ability triggered another mana ability, it would then use the stack so it doesn't go infinite. Because then if it didn't use the stack in those circumstances, it would just keep going. It would just keep building off of each other
Sure.
and go infinite. So when that does happen, it stops and just uses the stack, and then you have an opportunity to interact with it. Does that make sense? Clear as mud? Good.
Mhm.
Next one. All right. Kai, your turn.
Intervening if clause.
Is it hard to read?
If a trigger would, it checks to see if the card conditions are true when it would trigger.
It's bad.
When the
When the
effect would go to resolve, it checks one more time.
So that's basically how intermediates work. So if something would happen, it checks to see if it's true, and then whenever the effect would happen, it checks again when it goes to resolve. So an example of that is evolve. It was very popular a few standards ago. So it checks when it would happen, and then when it goes again once it resolves. What are some good examples besides evolve? Can you guys think of another one? Intermediate Fs. While you guys are thinking about that, how do we know this is an intermeaning F1 that we check it twice rather than just once? There's an if in the middle. That's a big example. It always says if. Kind of like if thans, like we were talking about earlier. Jeremiah, you have a face that you want to say something.
It's written as trigger condition, comma, if
Yeah, that's the key. Yeah.
Rule thingy, comma, effect. So in this case, evolve. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, trigger condition, comma. If that creature has power or toughness greater than this creature, comma, little stuff, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Resolution. So if we put in a 2/2 bear token, it would
Check to see if it's
check with the experiment one. In response to that trigger, we can dismember the bear token, and its power and toughness when experiment one checks would be -3/-3. So it checks the first time and checks again and wouldn't evolve.
make sense. I like it.
Felidar Sovereign's the other
Another
one.
one. Okay.
The at the beginning
3
of your
air
upkeep.
if you have 40 or more
Yeah,
life.
that's a
Yep.
that's a good one.
Standard legal for a couple more months.
It never was used though. All right. What's the next one? That's it. Any
Woo.
questions? Any more examples about intervening F? Did I miss something, Kai?
You missed possibly 2 that show up on tests. The first is if a trigger only triggers when the event happens, if it is prevented or replaced, the trigger does not occur. Again, no example ready. And then there
You're
is
good.
notes on the enter the battlefield trigger and how it relates to continuous effects. Do you know what I'm talking about?
So enter battlefield abilities that interact with continuous effects.
Exactly.
Okay. So an example of an enter the battlefield effect would be, say, when a creature enters, whenever a creature enters, say you have an enchantment that says whenever a creature enters, if it has power 4 or greater, draw a card. I think there's an enchantment out there that says that.
We'll go with that.
Or a spell.
Yeah.
And say you have another continuous effect
Heartless Zoning.
that just gives your creatures +1/+1. For
Always
instance.
watching.
Always watching. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
good. Okay.
Yeah. So I cast a 3/3 bear, 3/3 cat. Well, 2 cats this time. It's a big cat.
Cat travel.
Yeah. And then do I get the trigger from the? I just made up that enchantment.
Kavu Lair.
What?
Kavu Lair.
Kavu Lair? Is that the one?
Whenever a
thinking?
creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield,
Yes, it
its
is a real
controller
card.
draws a
Yeah,
card.
nice.
There is one from Origins where whenever you cast.
Okay, so whenever a creature enters, though, that's the important
Yeah.
part. Whenever a creature enters with power 4 or greater. So does it? Would you be able to draw a card if I have a 3/3 cat and
Always watching.
an always watching? I was thinking about it.
Let's go with intangible virtue because that affects
Intangible,
tokens.
yeah.
Intangible
that-
virtue.
Yeah.
The token creatures
If it
you
enters
control
the
get
battlefield.
+1/+1 and have vigilance.
Does it have?
It doesn't enter the battlefield with power 4 or greater, though, does it?
I like that.
Glad we went over
That's
this.
the one thing that threw me off, because if it was cast, then no. But if it... Wait, the enchantment says creatures you control get +1/+1, right?
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Token
so
creatures
then
you
yes, you
control.
would.
You would. Okay. Yeah, you would.
Yeah.
Kai, why?
Because continuous
I was
effects
getting
that
that.
change the characteristics of a permanent do so the moment the permanent is on the battlefield. There will never be a time it doesn't have that +1/+1.
Yeah, so it happens
Yeah.
all immediately. So there's not like a moment that it's like it is a 3/3. So
I was getting the stack in battlefield.
you're good. Totally fine. I was a little confused on that. So anything else I missed, Kai? Because I'm really good at that.
Let's see. You covered zone change triggers, right?
Briefly.
The only rule on the
touched
zone
on
change trigger that comes up is the fact that it traces it over one zone change, but never more than one zone change. So rough translation is, if there's a triggered ability like you stasis or something that says exile this when stasis snare is removed from the battlefield, it comes back, right? Well, if you stasis snared something and then an Eldrazi ingests it and eats it,
Yep.
and it goes to the graveyard, and then stasis snare is removed, it will not go back to the battlefield because the zone train trigger only tracks it once, right?
Yep.
And then the only other one I've got is the back in time trigger, which is complicated. I don't know. I don't know if it shows up on the text.
I don't think it does.
even.
I don't think they didn't go over that with power.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
so that's probably L2 stuff. So not
Yep.
not a big deal.
And interesting note with like the stasis snare effects, where it's all the one ability when this enchantment enters the battlefield, exile target creature until it leaves the battlefield. If you get rid of that with the trigger on the stack, the trigger will not resolve. But I don't know.
If you
Never-
The rules say so.
If you get rid of what?
To
So
get rid of the
if
enchantment.
I stasis snare your 5/5 eternalized Ulamog, or 4/4 eternalized Ulamog. With the stasis snare trigger on the stack, if you forsake the worthy and destroy stasis snare,
Right.
your token will never leave the battlefield.
Yeah, because the trigger doesn't resolve with the enchantment on the battlefield. I think that was the fix with the new ones. I think it started
Yeah.
with Banishing Light. There used to be like the O-ring effect with things like O-ring and the 1/3 from Innistrad, who exile something, is you can permanently exile permanents if you stack the triggers in the other order.
Got rid of the card that got
When this card enters the battlefield, exile target creature. When this card leaves the battlefield, return that creature into play.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you destroyed the thing, it's when this card leaves the battlefield, trigger would go on the stack, resolve nothing would come back, and
you'd exile it. But yeah,
Yep.
they fixed it so that
that
you're not
doesn't
able
happen.
to do that anymore.
You don't break Moto like
Yeah.
LSV did.
yeah.
That's awesome. All right, guys. Any questions in chat?
Let me post it up here. Any questions?
Sweet.
Got a couple people in our Twitch chat and YouTube.
Awesome. Anybody
So-
we know? Shout outs while we're waiting.
I mean, if you're here, shout out. Love to hear you.
While we're waiting, also we'll talk about a little bit about Paragon. Tonight we're doing draft. I don't work here, but I feel like talking about it.
Sure.
Paragon City draft they do tonight. We do Tuesday Legacy, which is on stream at 7. Friday Night Magic they do tons and tons of
All the formats.
all of the formats.
So,
Of course, like every store though. But
yeah.
Vanguard Commander Plane Chase.
If
you bring
you want
now,
to
you're just
bring,
being
if you can get a group
pretentious.
of 4 people to play Vanguard Commander Planes Chase,
We'll do it.
you will do it.
I am so good.
So coming up this next week, we're gonna have our team. Sorry, no, it's Thursday. So on Thursday we have our team constructed event. It's gonna be $36 for the team. So you'll have 1 player on standard, 1 player on modern, and 1 player on legacy, and that's been a blast. So it's been a really good turnout for the last 2 times that we've done it. So come for that, and then we will be closed on Tuesday, July 4th, as a note. And every other event for the week will resume as normally. So I think those are all of our upcoming events. We'd like to thank Kitchen Table Magic and MTG Pro Tutor. They're sponsors of our streams and good friends of our store. So go check them out on SoundCloud and iTunes for podcasts. And I think that'll do it.
Awesome. And any feedback for like this whole process would be super helpful because it's kind of new to us, this treatment. I don't think anybody else has ever done it before. I could be wrong. If you guys have any feedback on how we can be more effective, that'd be awesome. I've been thinking about that a lot. And yes, Corey, I am a complete total nerd. Thanks for the shout out.
Corey, like Corey Turan?
Corey Turan.
Oh, what a guy.
Thanks for joining us, Corey. And then the Bullfroggy, shout out to him also. I don't know who is that. Is that our homie over there?
That's our
What's
up?
Homie Maya. So
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, any feedback would be awesome. Because I'm honestly, I feel like every time I go back and watch mine, they're terrible.
it's just like watching yourself play a match, right? Like
Garbage.
you're like, oh, I made this mistake here.
I think I get.
But yeah, we're the only. This is something new, I think, for
every
Magic
community.
streaming, like for the community, is judge classes.
Yeah. And I'd love to figure out a way we can make this more interactive with the stream.
Certainly, yeah.
But anyway,
Let us know if this is something you want us to continue
doing.
doing in the future, because we like
don't know.
this. It's a lot of fun.
it is a lot.
It's a blast coming on Wednesdays, and
We'll probably talk about that a little bit at the end. More.
yeah.
Yep.
Get some more feedback. Anyway,
Um,
see you next week.
potentially 2 more weeks. Again, if you are interested in certifying and becoming a Magic judge, one of the requirements is you need to judge 2 events. So come on down to Paragon so you can judge an event.
Also, send us a message on Facebook or on Twitch.
So
You
we
can-
can come
you can-
find you.
yeah.
Just send it to Paragon City. They'll get it to us. Or if you find our Facebook page, great.
Yeah, message Paragon City Games on Facebook,
Yeah.
and we will get in touch with who needs to
Yeah,
get
and
in
if
touch
you,
with to
like,
get
if
you
you're from
judging.
out of town, I know there's a few people from like California and one from Idaho that tune in. At least they were when we first started.
Okay.
And if they probably will need help finding a judge locally.
Yeah,
I can take that under and try to find someone if we can.
Certainly.
We can definitely find
Yeah.
you a job.
I've got buddies in St. George who they want to get
Neat.
certified.
Another person.
Yeah,
So there we go.
that was something that the store down there really needs.
There you go.
So, because they want to run bigger Magic events, but
Well,
they don't
have
have
them
any
send
judges
us a
down there.
message and we'll get in
Yeah.
touch with them.
So, I always post it on the stream. But anyways, thanks for joining us tonight, guys. Have a great evening.
Woo!
Next
you're
week,
good.
same bad time, same bad channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Batman.